breakfast. On Fleetwood Mac, my roommate's dead. Fungus fermentation. Another Wonka reboot, JFK's assassination.
It's not my favorite topic, just my brain's current fixation.
Hyperfocus.
Hyperfocus, a neurodivergent podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Hyperfocus, a neurodivergent podcast. I'm your host, Virginia Dickens, and I am here with comedian Max Gross today.
Hi, am I supposed to introduce myself regular style? I'm Max. I know Virginia from Also Comedy.
That's perfect. And I'm so excited. Today, Max is here to talk about testosterone with trans men specifically.
Yes.
And then a little later on, I'm going to talk about my hyperfocus, which is 90s media, kind of generally speaking. But before we get into our stuff, I like to start the episode off by just letting you talk about your experience being neurodivergent.
Well, you can tell because I instantly did not know how to start the podcast, and I currently am not sure where to look, except I only know where not to look. So I'm like, rules. Most of my specific neurodivergence is OCD, which is, I don't know that there is a fun kind of neurodivergent. I would not qualify that as a fun kind. Did not know that that was what was going on until relatively a couple years ago in my life. I just thought that kind of everybody was constantly having thoughts that they hated and was trying to be like, why am I thinking of this all the time, and also trying not to think about this all the time? Oh, that's not normal? Great. Yeah, I'm like, oh, does everybody else think that if someone in their life like has an accident that they somehow caused that by vaguely thinking of something tangentially related to it? No, just me? Okay. Okay, cool. Figuring out that I had that, great at helping me have that less. Mm-hmm. I was on medication for ADHD as a child and then stopped taking it. And it is hard for me to get tasks done. So my girlfriend loves to be like, you obviously have ADHD. I have chosen as an adult to be like, no, I think maybe a little, but like not enough compared to other people. Like, I don't feel like I get to claim it as much as other people, but I can't say that it's never been part of my thing.
Well, it's a spectrum, right? So
yeah.
Any level of it you can claim.
Those are the big ones. Also, you are going to get a few delightful voice cracks on this. That's not going to stop, which I'll talk about for the testosterone portion of things.
Why don't we get into the testosterone portion of things? I'm really excited to talk with this about you. And then as I was like researching, and I just like was reading your articles, so
yes, I was like, this is going to be easy for me to talk about because I've already done the homework in the numerous articles I've written about this, so
yes.
Might as well make it somewhat easier for myself.
Mm-hmm. And usually I like to ask too, like, how did you get onto this topic? But obviously, from personal experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as of the time of recording this, I will be on testosterone for 2 years next month. I started being on gel and switched to shots. I ended up writing an entire article where I talked to other trans guys. I talked to doctors about being like, okay, one of those worked for me, one of those didn't. What was going on? What's the like mechanism of how these work? Basically, anytime I've had a question about how my transition is going, I've Googled questions about it. I've run into walls where there's absolutely nothing that isn't for like cis dudes who are bodybuilders. So I've had to really fill in a lot of gaps in my knowledge. I would also like to put the huge disclaimer that I am not a doctor. I've interviewed doctors. I've interviewed a bunch of other people with lived experience, but my explanations of testosterone are very much like, it's kind of like a Plato's allegory of the cave understanding of testosterone, where I'm just getting explained to this by other people and like trying to put the pieces together. But if I say something fucked up and wrong,
it's okay.
That's because everyone else is also fucked up and wrong about this. Please correct me. I would love to know better. Also, doctors don't always know better. So
that's true. Just because somebody holds this title doesn't always mean that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, there's no standardized thing that they have to learn about testosterone, which I learned and was like, oh, terrifying. Like you learn about hormonal stuff, but it's never trans specific. Mm-hmm. There are things you can learn, but it's pretty much every doctor for themselves. And believe it or not every doctor is choosing to go learn about that.
Sure, of course. So you write a lot about this. And did you start writing about it before you started taking testosterone or after, or was it kind of like simultaneous?
I started researching it before I started taking it. And I started researching it pretty heavily because I was like terrified of the side effects. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think part of the reason I write about it now is because I want people who were Googling what I was Googling to like find my writing and be like, oh, maybe this isn't that scary.
Yeah.
Like something I would love to write now that it's been 2 years is like, here's all the things I was scared of. Here's whether those actually came true. Spoiler alert, pretty much zero of the things that I was scared of happened. That's not going to be the case for everybody. Headline of that one, I was worried I was going to go bald. I didn't. That's not going to happen for everybody. That's like just kind of rolling the dice. And that might still happen later, but 2 years in, we're good. I wasn't finding a lot of helpful information. It was just kind of healthline.com. Here's what happens. Here's a timeline of the effects. All of which I've since learned is like based on very ill-researched and long ago researched information. Like a lot of the timelines that trans men and trans women are given for changes are, it's not just outdated. It's like the study this is based on, the sample size is 12 people that were only studied for 3 years. So of course you're saying all the things happen after 2 years. You have no idea what happens 10 years later. So
yeah,
oops, we have to do all the work ourselves.
Right. And everything affects everyone differently, but then also on top of just not having really any substantial science behind it to reference either. It really is truly like everyone is like, well, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, which is not to make it sound scary. Like, it's not unsafe. That doesn't make it unsafe. Like, we know within the realm of possibility what's going to happen, but like in terms of how it does puberty, like I distinctly remember one of my friends being like, oh, anyone who says your voice is going to change after the first like 6 months is just trying to cope and like they hate it. And I was like, okay, so you think mine's done? And he was like, and it's still not. Like, I listened to a podcast recording of myself from July. It's so different. Like, we're still going.
Well, and also in one of the articles you wrote that I read, you/the doctor you were interviewing kind of like reframed side effects as like, it's not necessarily a side effect, it could just be an effect. And like, it also is kind of how you see it in a way.
Yeah. Him saying that was really like a shifting moment for me, where side effects is kind of like what might happen from a medication that you don't necessarily want. And this is, you do want these things. Like, it's not a side effect that my voice dropped. Like, I took it because I wanted that.
Yeah.
Even if I don't want to go bald, like, it's not a side effect that happened. Like, it was an effect that I signed up for and knew might happen. And like, also, it's not like I'm introducing something totally new to my body. This is not crazy information. Everybody has estrogen in their body. Everyone has testosterone in their body. Like, it's not like I'm suddenly introducing a new medication that my body has no idea how to react to. You're just changing the balance of what you're running on.
Yeah, it's not like like you said, or a new like drug that hit the market.
Like, you gotta
try
this
out now. Yeah, try this out now, and then there's lawsuits, and then it's like not like that at all. Like, I read the article about how taking testosterone you can grow multiple prostates.
Yes,
right.
Innumerable small prostates.
Innumerable small prostates.
Yes, that's my favorite fun fact, and I would love to get to that, but continue.
Oh, but within this article too, you discussed how there could be possible like mood changes or something like that, and like you said that it gave you energy and made you happy and excited to be alive. Then I read that and I was like, oh my God, should I take testosterone? I was like, oh, that sounds great.
So what's crazy is people are like, I'm not saying like, yes, you should do that, but like my aunt and uncle are both taking testosterone kind of for that reason.
Yeah.
For the fact that both of them get prescribed it, there clearly must be some, like, they're not just going to give that to you. It's a controlled substance. But like, for both of them to be prescribed that, they clearly have to have gone to their doctor and been like, there's something that this could help with. From what my mom's told me, it seems like they're both getting benefits out of it.
That's awesome.
And like, I forget what form they're getting, but it seems like it's a little more localized. I'm not going to be the one to tell my aunt this, but like, it is still going to act systemically. Like, you can microdose that, but it is eventually going to have all the same effects that are happening to me.
Yeah, your aunt's going to get a bunch of tiny prostates.
She is going to eventually grow innumerable small prostates and like start getting hair growing in places, but like slower than I am. Probably so slow that if she notices that starting to happen, she can stop and it'll totally stop. But you're not wrong. Like, yeah, it does have that effect. And if cis people want to take it, I think hot take, they should be able to. Like, I don't think HRT is just for trans people. It's already been for cis people for like menopause reasons, but I kind of think it should be for everybody.
And like, kind of just to go back to like lack of research, like specifically like related to trans people, but there, at least from my experience with like birth control, there's also a lot of lack of research there as well. Yep. And like just hormonal research in general. Last year I got my IUD removed and had what they call like the Mirena effect, which is it affects like 30% of people or something, where essentially you just kind of like lose your mind. I was experiencing
from getting it out,
from removing it, because the lack of hormones, then like your body's responding to the lack of hormones, then it has to like recreate it themselves.
Okay, that's fascinating because so I just got a hysterectomy 2 months ago. I kept my ovaries. So there's a couple tendencies here. I kept my ovaries because I was like, I don't want to have a sudden big hormonal change. Emotionally, I don't want to deal with that. And just in case I lose access to testosterone, I don't want to not have anything producing hormones in my body.
That makes sense, yeah.
I later find out it kind of doesn't matter. So my second point, it does matter. My first point about being like, I don't want my body to make a big switch kind of doesn't matter, because the most simplified way that it was explained to me is that for hormones to be binding to receptors, basically if you have testosterone and testosterone, there's more of it, it's going to beat estrogen out to those receptors every time, which is why trans men don't have to take estrogen blockers for the most part, and trans women do have to take testosterone blockers. If you're on too much testosterone, it can aromatize back into estrogen, but that's a separate case. Basically, it turns out like I've already been blocking the estrogen, so it didn't super matter that I kept those. But I was like, I feel like I've experienced changes. What is it? And it's because I had an IUD before and they took that out.
It could be. Which one did you have?
Skyla, which is similar.
It's a hormonal one.
I was on Mirena before, and then they switched me to Skyla. And now there's obviously nothing. But I was like, wait, so taking the IUD out made more of a hormonal difference than taking literal organs out of my body. And I didn't know this until no one thought they had to tell me that. No one thought to mention this. And
I didn't know until I got deep in I'm in the subreddit of all these people being like, this happened to me, this happened to me. And there's like not really any research on it at all. Or most doctors are like, that's not a thing. Even though they've like, I think had some settlements with it, because like you just sink into like a really deep depression. I was experiencing like similar to like postpartum depression, I think, for like a good 6 weeks. I had to go back into depression treatment because it was horrible.
One of my therapist was like, does it make sense to maybe frame some of the like post-surgery feelings as like this might low-key be some kind of postpartum thing? Like not exactly, but like you got stuff, like your body thinks what's going on is what's going on. And like obviously it's not exactly that. I did not give birth. I've never been pregnant. That's never gonna happen now, which is sick. But like there's still like a specific combination of hormone shit going on that doctors are just not looking into. If you have a uterus, people are like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Good luck.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what hormone dominant system you have.
But kind of what you said too, kind of back to your aunt and uncle, which I find so interesting, is like obviously there's like so much research to be done, but I think it could be like very beneficial also for treating a lot of different things potentially. I don't know. It just seems like a nice big opportunity that no one's really taking.
It's like not only that, I have so many trans guy friends that say stuff to me where I'm like, dude, that sounds like endometriosis to me. Like I had endometriosis. They removed some of it when they did the hysterectomy, which is great. But like they'll describe things to me that sound like that. And like part of the treatment for that is to just be like, okay, let's just like not get a period anymore. And testosterone after a while will hopefully stop your period. I'm like, okay, what if this was helpful? Like I'm seeing other applications here. There's so many ways that I see the health aspects of it overlap that I wish anyone would look into, but it's so hard to get anyone to pull apart the like trans medical questions and all the ethics that they think go into that from like, okay, they're actually like, you already have these hormones in your system.
Exactly.
Affecting that balance could be good for you in ways that are not just like taking testosterone. You're not going to wake up and look like a man. I fucking wish. That would be sick. It's taken me 2 years to look like this, and that's like not that far. Like you can barely see the mustache that's going on right now.
I see it though. It's there.
It's like you're not going to wake up and look like this. You're more likely to wake up the next day and be like, oh my God, I have energy and my cramps don't feel as terrible. You know, like I wish someone would look into that.
No, me too. And like you said, like the research only tends to be around like cis men who are bodybuilders, right?
So it's that, and I found an entire thing that I had to cut from my article on gel versus shots that I found out that like I thought that cis men just get less testosterone as they age. Turns out that is not necessarily true. It's like the peak of testosterone I think is like 19, and then it does decline to a point, maybe like 40s. And then from there, it's not that everybody's average testosterone is lower, it's that the variance is a lot higher. So from there, it's just kind of like personal. And that everybody's testosterone count is like lower now. There's something going on nationally. So whenever you see headlines that are like, the nation's sperm is fucked up, it's like, okay, that's kind of a sensationalized headline, but it's also not totally untrue. Like everybody's having testosterone problems right now. It's not just a trans guy thing.
That's interesting. Are there theories on why that is?
Listen, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say microplastics have got to be doing something.
Okay, no, I think so too. I think so. I was like, I think it's like chemicals in food and microplastics or something. But I don't want to sound like a granola like going down down
Right.
like to an RFK Jr. like type thing. But I'm also like, I don't know, man. Like we're just putting a lot of shit in our bodies.
I don't want to sound like that, but also I'm like, there's no way this can be good for everybody. And like, if the nation's sperm counts are doing bad, like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, the nation is femboys now. Like, no, we're getting poisoned. Like,
Yeah.
things are bad.
It's like, well, yeah, what's something that equally affects everybody? And I'm like, well, we're all filled with microplastics,
Yeah.
apparently.
We're all drinking water and eating food, and it is going badly for us.
I'm sure you have more to say on the
Innumerable small prostates was the exact terminology that I found.
Small prostates.
So, okay, I'm going to use terms for this that I'm using, love the voice cracks, that I'm using scientifically. I found 2 studies that confirm this. Their sample sizes are still pretty small because every study on this, that's the case. If you have been on testosterone, I think the people they studied had been on it for at least a year, can grow prostate tissue in the vaginal canal. So you don't get it where cis men do, but you do get, instead of like one prostate gland, you get, imagine instead of a sandcastle, you get the little grains of sand, kind of, is the way that I like to put it. And so like there have been multiple studies confirming this. They followed the people that they studied for, I think, at least 10 years. Nobody had any increased prostate cancer risk, so this doesn't come with the bad sides of it. There was absolutely no part of this study that was like, okay, but does that come with like the stuff that feels good?
Right,
Which is
yeah.
my follow-up question.
Yeah, that's a good follow-up question. It's
I'm
important.
like, okay, what about the good part? But just the fact that that happens
Yeah.
is insane to me. Nobody told me that that happens before I started T, and it wouldn't have influenced my decision either way, but man, is it cool to know.
Yeah, that's super cool.
And I interviewed a doctor about this, and he didn't know. Like, he's trans. He had no idea. And was like, wait, really? And I sent him the studies on it and was like, damn, I'm still learning stuff all the time. And like, I should know because I'm a medical professional and I'm trans. Like, it's my body and
Yeah.
my field of study, and I'm still
Learning.
yeah, not being told these things. Again, some of these words that I'm using, like this as a phrase sounds crazy to me. I've spoken to somebody who is just studying the vaginal microbiome of trans men, which again, microbiome is the craziest part of that. But basically being on testosterone for a long time like thins the skin in that area, which makes you more prone to like infections. Like you have to worry about shit in a way that you didn't before. But I've had friends be like, yeah, I've had a bunch of STI issues. Why is that happening? And then had this other person be like, well, I'm studying it and it's because like a certain kind of bacteria. Again, if you're hearing it and you're like, ew, there's already bacteria there that like,
Oh, yeah.
the human body's a petri dish. This is normal stuff that is happening to literally everybody. I'm just putting it in terms that you might be hearing for the first time. Nobody's out here telling me like, hey, you might have to be extra cautious of STIs. I don't know a single trans guy that's been on T for more than a couple of years that isn't using estrogen cream specifically to like make sure that some of these issues aren't happening, to make sure that they're not like in pain.
Yeah.
Having to learn as you go sucks. Like having to learn as you go by having the consequences sucks. And I'm lucky that I've had friends learn the consequences for me so I can learn before it's a problem for me. But like, man, it would be great. If this sounds all over the place, it's because I'm both neurodivergent and trying to learn something that nobody's teaching me that I have to teach myself.
At all. No, thank you for sharing this. This is great. Are you ready to discuss my hyperfocus of 90s media?
Absolutely.
Okay. I took a lot of notes. I'm also scattered on this too.
No, that's so
because
okay. I'm so ready to go into this.
There's a lot. So I had foot surgery a couple of weeks ago, so I've been watching a lot of TV. And so I started with the Jerry Springer documentary on Netflix called Fights, Camera, Action.
Perfect name.
Perfect name. Great. And then after that, I watched Mr. McMahon, about Vince McMahon of the WWE, something I know nothing about. And that's a docuseries on Netflix as well. Then lastly, I found this documentary on Peacock called about Girls Gone Wild.
You're really going into like not just 90s media, but like specifically like potentially problematic 90s media.
Yes. And I think too, because I've been really lately reflecting on like social media now and how we consume it. And so I love to backtrack and like watch things during like my formative years, even if I wasn't watching it at the time, it still like influences the culture and whatnot. And I don't have like a clear thesis on this, but it really bothered me watching Jerry Springer because they just kept being like, just trying to make it out that like it's a horrible show. Like it's not a good show, but also like trying to frame it as if like the producers did all these things and this and this and that without having the separate conversation of the fact that it was the most popular show on television. Like in terms of talk shows, it for 57 straight weeks was number one one on top of Oprah. So I'm like, we're not discussing culturally why this show is so popular.
I've stayed homesick from school.
Right.
before.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I never sat down and was like, I'm going to watch Jerry Springer, but I've accidentally come upon Jerry Springer because it happens.
Yeah.
And like, I understand the attraction to like the trash of it all. Like,
Yeah.
I understand especially before social media, like, where else do you go to see a specific kind of train wreck to be like, thank God that's not my life? And like, was it a terrible show? Oh yeah, for sure. But also, like, I do on some level get it.
Well, that was part of it. So Richard Dominic is the executive producer of that show, and Jerry Springer was like about to get canceled. It was like initially super boring and very like all the other talk shows, and then he becomes executive producer. He's like, we have to like change it up. We have to put up like ordinary people instead of like interviewing experts. I think they had a shitty time slot too. So they were like, you know, if someone's scrolling their TV channels, you want them to stop and watch what is on yours, and you only have like a couple of seconds to capture their attention. He also like had said something, he's like, he wanted it to be entertaining without sound, so you're just watching it and you're like, wow, what's that?
I've literally worked for companies that have used that exact strategy for like TikTok. Like, I've heard that exact strategy parroted
Yes.
back word for word, where they're like, this needs to work without sound and it needs to stop people within seconds, like scrolling.
That's where you can see like the connect from like then to now. Another thing, I was just kind of looking at like 90s TV in general, and families started to get more TVs and like individual TVs. So people were just not watching as like a family anymore.
That makes sense. I don't think I've ever watched Jerry Springer with my family on purpose.
No, you're like alone and you're like, oh, what's this? I'll check it out. And so again, that kind of just like, it's like this funnel of like, it's like what grabs attention. And then you're like, well, what's the next step of that? And then now you can kind of see how it's like, oh, we all have individual phones that have like the most stimulating, shocking content on it at all fucking times. And so,
Yeah, which is so good for us.
which is so good for us. Exactly. So I wish the documentary had like made more of a commentary on why culturally it was so popular, because you have all these producers, and sure, like the producers are evil geniuses. They're smart and they're good at their jobs, and like it's also evil because it does feel like punching down in a way the types of people that they put on the show. They called it the Springer Triangle, and 75% of the people on that show came from this triangle in America.
Oh God,
that
what is
spanned
this?
from, it was like Tennessee to Ohio to Georgia. And then also fighting. The reason every episode was fighting is because those episodes did the best. I was never interested in the fighting, but that's what like viewers really wanted. So like I watched that one first. So then immediately after, I wanted to watch this like Mr. McMahon docuseries just because it looked interesting. I don't know anything about the WWE. And it's about Vince McMahon, who's like the owner of this company. And I was on Reddit, and it was really good for people like who know nothing about WWE, thought it was like amazing. And then the people who like are into WWE didn't care for it that much, which like feels correct. I consider it performance art.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's like soap opera performance art.
I think that is low-key Drag Race for straight people.
Oh, 100%. I was just talking to my friend about this the other day, and who's queer, and we were saying how like WWE is like so gay. But like
I love that you specified that the friend was queer, as if you were gonna be like, yeah, me and this straight friend were like that gay ass wrestling show.
But those fans would never admit that. But specifically, the theatrics of it really take off kind of around, like, they reference Jerry Springer in this documentary at one point. And it's when, at the time it was WWF, which is Vince McMahon, was in, like, competition with, I think it's WCW, which was Ted Turner's. They were rivals. They had, like, a rival Monday night slot. But the Turner was winning, essentially, like, taking all of Vince McMahon's fighters for more money, for more contracts and stuff. And so like ratings were down. And so again, another evil genius. Vince McMahon is like super evil also. This documentary is great, but like they do caveat at the very beginning. They're like, while we are recording this, like we recorded most of it before like allegations of sex trafficking came out. So
Oh boy, that's a pretty big thing to miss.
Yeah, it's really
my
bad.
next question was going to be, so does the big the elephant in the room come up or no?
So they do discuss it. And then obviously once that comes out, he stops showing up for interviews. But most of the doc, they do like have him there for the interviews. But he like pivots to what they call the Attitude Era for his show. And essentially he becomes a character, evil Mr. McMahon, and he is now a character in the WWE world, and he has a rival. He has a feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's like a long-going feud. His family are all characters, like his daughter Stephanie, his son Shane, and his wife Linda McMahon, who is now, I think, the Secretary of Education under Trump. She was in the previous Trump presidency also.
Everything I learn is against my will.
But they really like upped the provocativeness. Like they had all of the like sexy women and the spectacle of it, kind of similar to like Jerry Springer. They rebranded themselves as a more adult themed, sexualized, and violent product. So that's what they did with the Attitude Era. And then essentially it worked. So like he becomes Mr. McMahon, or evil Mr. McMahon, really blurred the lines between like reality and character there. I think he just kind of played out like his biggest fantasies. Like he had Sable, this like hot wrestler woman that he had an affair with his wife, who was like in a wheelchair and like maybe paralyzed and not conscious, like just like crazy stuff that like didn't happen in real life. But also I'm like, yeah, you're definitely cheating on your wife. Essentially the audience like hated him leading up to this, and it's called the Montreal Screwjob, which he screwed over one of the champions that was leaving his network to go to another one, and so they lost a lot of fans. So people hated this guy. So he was like, if you all hate me, I'm going to be the person you hate. And he becomes this evil character that everyone can hate, that ends up skyrocketing their ratings. Because Linda, his wife, was like, any reaction from an audience is good. So if people are booing, if they're mad, they're yelling, they're chanting slut, like, because they would do that to like, they treated women like shit. But they were like, that's good, because we're getting an emotional reaction from them, which again plays to me back to social media of like how everything's so emotional.
Everything's been bad the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's been bad forever. Awesome.
So then I'm watching this and I'm like, this is just so fascinating to me. Those got their ratings up, and then essentially Vince McMahon bought WCW and he owns all of it. Like he triumphed in the end.
Character-wise, did he stay evil after buying the rival?
I don't think he's a character now. He's not affiliated with the company currently, but he still maintained. Yeah. It's kind of like Marvel, I think, like in a way. I don't know. Like there's so many different like storylines and rivalries and characters and stuff. Yeah.
Like to paint yourself as like the evil CEO, but then to also be like, but I did win.
Well, it wasn't, I think,
it's
because
like a little real.
because they didn't have like a manifestation of Turner being a rival in the ring. So like that was just like happening behind the scenes. But like Sable, the hot girl that he was like had an affair with on his wife for show, she sued them, I think, for sexual harassment. Probably.
Well, yeah.
But then later they brought her back in, even despite the suing, and then they played that off as like a storyline.
Jesus.
It's like so smart. You know what I mean? Like any bad press, you just turn it into a storyline that you play out in your arena. But it's crazy. And I mean, it's also evil. Basically, the Attitude Era was like, I was just like, holy shit. It mimicked kind of some like similar themes to Jerry Springer in terms of just like sensationalism and like craziness and sexual exploitation. And then that brought me to the Girls Gone Wild documentary, which I didn't really know much about at all. Everyone just knows like the infomercials. And this is on Peacock. Girls Gone Wild, The Untold Stories on Peacock. And talk about evil people. Joe Francis, who's like the founder of Girls Gone Wild, is, I mean, not to like rank these people.
Power ranking. Who's the most
like
evil? Jerry
Joe
Springer,
Francis
Vince
is
McMahon?
like a really, really horrible person. It's really interesting though how he like created Girls Gone Wild, because he was working for Real TV, which was like, I guess, a television. People would send in like videos of like car accident, like anything that was like slightly too violent or slightly too hot for like network television, and Real TV would play it. And then he realized that there was like a bunch of like things getting cut that weren't getting broadcast there, and so he kind of like made his own thing because it was under the premise of home videos. He like got away with a lot.
America's most terrible home videos.
Exactly. So first of all, no one would like advertise it until Howard Stern show would like he advertised on the Howard Stern show, and then sold. Like this guy was like a millionaire by the age of 24. What I didn't realize was Girls Gone Wild isn't just like girls like showing their boobs. Like it's actually like porn.
Wait. This is the first time I'm learning that.
Yeah, I didn't know this until I watched this documentary. It's amateur porn, technically, by people who like are not trying to be porn stars, if that makes sense.
Wait, but it's not just boobs.
No.
I thought that was the whole thing.
Me
I
too.
thought that was the entire, okay,
That's
not strong enough marketing.
That's what they could get away, because you can't advertise hardcore porn infomercials.
They can't even be like, also, by the way, there's more than that. They can't like hint at it.
They probably were like, boobs and more, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen one in a while. And they got away with a lot there too, like around a lot of rules, a lot of laws, because it was all framed as like home video. They ran into a ton of issues with having underage girls, because like for a while they wouldn't even like check IDs or like maybe have consent forms. One of the early videos that went out, this one girl was like, 16 or something and like on spring break and drunk, and someone filmed her but had a video of her saying she consented. Like on camera, she consented.
Right. But if you're 16, I don't know how much that matters. Like,
no, it doesn't matter.
Some Law and Order SVU.
And so they did
shit.
she got like a small settlement, but I think ultimately they still used her footage. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's not good.
It's bad. And it was so early in this type of TV. Like he got away with a lot of shit. And then essentially they would maybe pay like for like porn scenes. Like they'd be like, oh, we'll give you $100 if you like do this or do that. Like, and you know, these girls are on spring break. They're like in Panama City. In hindsight, I'm like, you're not getting paid nearly enough for the things that you're doing on camera.
Girl, ask for more.
But all of this too was like framed under the guise of kind of like new wave, like feminism in a way, of like feminine empowerment. Because like, and it's not. They're being exploited, but like that's a lot of it was framed that way of like, you're a free woman, show your boobs.
Own your body. But actually, we own the distribution rights to it. Sorry.
They had a specific type of person. They wanted like a girl next door, American Girl Next Door, who wouldn't normally do something like that, but she would do it for you, you know, like that sort of a thing. So it kind of again ties into like these other shows in a way. It's like a lot of pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries, a lot of people like really taking it to that level, and like nobody's stepping in to be like, you can't do this anymore.
No nuance, no explanation. What's your power ranking of most evil? Jerry Springer, Vince McMahon, guy behind Girls Gone Wild?
I think Girls Gone Wild. I think Joe Francis is the worst, and then Vince McMahon, but it's real close. And then the only thing Jerry Springer would do is sleep with his guests, which isn't great either.
But you know, based on the other things you've explained to me, like seems like the least of the three evils.
Again, how I'm reflecting on this now into how we got from here to kind of like current social media is like this like focus on ordinary people as like the main person, whether it's like your 15 minutes of fame or this or this or that. We've like funneled it through social media to now like everything is so focused on yourself. It's all like you have your profile with your followers and you're this and that. Like also all these things were shocking at the time. They're not shocking to us anymore. Like
yeah, that's true. Now it's like I can open my phone and see 8 of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can see boobs anytime I want. But
I can see boobs and people fighting on the same app.
Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been great. I've learned a lot. You learned about Girls Gone Wild and WWE.
You learned about innumerable small prostates.
Yes, which I'm like so glad I know. Max is a New York City-based comedian. You can follow him on social media at Max Got Jokes, and also be sure to go to Auto Straddle, where he specifically covers trans masculinity and testosterone. And if you want to follow along with this show at Hyperfocus Comedy for updates on podcast episodes and live shows, that would be awesome. There's also a Patreon linked in the show notes as well. I'm Virginia Dickens, and this has been Hyperfocus, a neurodivergent podcast.